Can we talk? Hello, this is Lainey from Camp Joy Farms. Today is Tuesday, June 14th, and I'm out in my lower garden, which is a big old crunchy, crusty mess right now. These are my cowpeas. This end looks okay. The plants do, but they're not putting off as many pods as the other end. The other end has been putting off the most pods, and it's all of a sudden turning yellow and dying off, which they do once they start putting off a lot of the pods. But what is happening is, in this 100-degree heat, even though cowpeas love heat, I am running across this just constant burnt up pods. Just constant. They're everywhere, all over my bushes. And I'm out here a couple of times a day picking, and things won't be ready yet, and then I come out here the next day, just burnt up pods. I come out here the next day, look at all those burnt up pods. So I come out here the next day and they're just brown and crunchy. They just are getting burnt up. I don't know what else to say. These are the black-eyed peas mostly that are burnt that you're looking at. They've went from the stage where you don't want to pick them because they're too pliant and they're too rubbery to burnt within a day or so. And it's been so distressing. My black-eyed pea harvest is horrible. What's kind of hanging in there are my zipper cream peas, which are those. They're a little fatter. Now normally I want to explain to people that haven't watched my channel before, haven't watched all the videos, I accidentally planted zipper cream peas and then came back the very next day thinking I was one row over, and I planted black-eyed peas. So I planted the zipper creams, which are those, and the black-eyed peas all together. So I had that going against them from the beginning, is they didn't have tons of ventilation because they all came up at the same time. They all grew at the same time, and they are putting out peas at the same time. And the black-eyed peas seem to be taking it on the chin. I'm not sure if it's completely all the heat or if it's because they're too crowded in. I'm really not sure. But all I know is they are a crunchy mess. Skip over here to this row. This is my purple hull peas, which the row looks healthier. They look greener. But I'm not getting the harvest that I normally get off of these either. A lot of them are shriveling up. They look like they're ready, and then when you go to grab them, there's no peas in there. It's just a big mushy pod. Normally when I harvest purple hull peas, I wait until the pods are purple. You harvest them, this might be a little too overdone, but you harvest them when they turn a darker purple. I've been having to grab them when they're like this and have a lot of green on them if I even want a chance of having a harvest. I cannot wait this year until they start turning purple, because by that point they're either dried up in there and not right or they're ate up by wasps. The wasps have been horrible. They may be like a moth kind of situation, but I just call them wasps because they are four-legged flying wasps that are landing on everything out here. They're landing on all my tomatoes. They're on all of my peas. If you walk along and a wasp is on it, you know it's ready, because as soon as it gets halfway ready, they want to jump on it and eat it. But I'm just having to deal with what I've got, and I try to come out here every day and get what I can. And trying to put them in Ziplocs and get them in the freezer as quick as I can. I'm not really sure what I look like as I'm filming this. Step over this row here. My cucumbers over here are just a big crunchy mess. They're about done. But let me tell you what the big issue has been for me. And this might sound silly, and there's probably tons of solutions, but sometimes, I don't want to say as a woman, because I know women get all freaked out about, whether you say something, everything wants to be equal, but I'm going to be honest with you. I get emotional sometimes, and I am outdone this year, and as a woman, I just want to cry sometimes. A man may not handle it the same way, but as a woman, I want to cry, because my intention for this garden was to have my drip irrigation system in. I had the drip irrigation system in the upper garden, the garden up the hill there, and it was working fine. Excuse me, I'm sweating to death. I had it up there and it was working fine. I had all the rows run, and I had the ends hooked to the hose, and everything was fine. What I didn't tell you, I did a video on it. I never aired it because I seemed, I was aggravated, and I seemed aggravated in the video. And I got so technical telling you about why I was aggravated that I bored myself to death. I was aggravated because I had an old drip irrigation system. I had ordered it from Johnny's a few years ago. I had used it for 2 years because I'd had 1,000 feet of hose, of drip emitter tape hose. I had used it for 2 years. The first year a lot, the second year just to hook a few rows up. And it was fine. It did fine. Every little part of it, I knew how to work it. I figured it out, and it did fine. This year, because I was having 3 gardens, I needed more. So I ordered their 2,000 feet system. It's a couple of $100 plus shipping. And so it came in. I didn't open it right away because it was wintertime and I didn't need it. I was trying to spend money before the end of the year so that I could write it off on last year's taxes. So I got it early. Didn't really open it up and look at it. I assumed it was the same thing as I had been using. Well, it was not. It was, and here I go. This is why I didn't put the other video out, because there's a lot of ways you can resolve things and call and complain or put comments on their customer service, and they're a great company. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. But that 2,000 feet system was a piece of junk. And I didn't know it until I needed it. And I didn't know it until I had measured out emitter tape, laid it in the ground, and I was actually excited about it because it came with a blue line on the top to let you know which side was up. Well, that's usually kind of hard because the tape's usually all black, and it's just got little slits every foot or so, or 8 inches to a foot, whatever it is, and you have to look at it a lot to figure out which way is up and which way is down. So I was happy that this particular one I ordered had a blue line across the top, and it showed me which way was up. So when I was laying it, I was able to just kind of run my foot along it, and I knew it was staying straight up. So I was excited about that. But, okay, so I cut it, I laid some tape. I still had some old tape. I used that up on 3 rows, and I laid the new tape on 2 rows. Got it covered with dirt, everything. Then you take a piece of pipe that they have, and that's what you run across the top part of your garden to hook all your little row caps into. This is why I didn't run the other video either, because it gets boring. It's boring, but it's technical, and if I can save somebody some trouble and some money, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. You run the tubing across the top of the garden, and you hook each row's valve into it. So this year I was using all of their valves and stuff, which were okay. But when I got to the 2 rows where I was hooking the valves into this year's new tape that had the blue line on top, that's when I discovered that emitter tape was junk. You couldn't hardly hook the valves onto it. You couldn't thread it in there. And really all you need to do is just stick the little black emitter tape onto the end of your valve and push it up, and then twist it. You just twist it like a little, like you would a garden hose. It just twists on there, and it twists it onto the tape, and that keeps the tape from being able to fall back off. Well, you couldn't push the tape up. You couldn't push it up. It didn't want to go. It flopped like a wet noodle. It was like trying to put a piece of pasta on that, on on that valve. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I've already cut on this. I've opened the box. I've got packaging open. You've got to be kidding me. But no, it was terrible. So I actually ended up, I think I got them on there on the end where the water hose came in. But on the back end of each row, you have to, this year's used to, you just tied it off, put a big clip on it and things like that. But this year's kit came with end caps, which I thought, great, just put a little end cap on and I don't have to do all that clipping and tying and all like I used to. Well, that I couldn't thread it on the end caps. So I just couldn't do it. And I ended up, instead of just being able to bend over, do it and walk away, I ended up sitting in the dirt, Indian style, trying to thread this stuff. And guess what I ended up doing? I ended up having to tie it off and clip it like last year's because it would not go on the end caps. And then when I went to hook the whole system up, there's a little part that hooks to your water hose, and then you put it up. This is why I didn't put that other video on there. You take the part that goes on the water hose and you thread it onto the little filter system from Johnny's. But before you do that, you're supposed to put this little Teflon tape on there and then thread it on. And the Teflon tape kind of keeps it water sealed. Fine, I put the tape on, but then the thing you're threading onto there would not go on. It just wouldn't go on. I finally ended up just taking the Teflon tape off because I thought, well, maybe this tape is keeping it from not going on. And it wasn't. What it was the threads on that part were just plastic. And they were bent. And they would not let anything thread on there. They were bent the minute I got it. If I bent them, well, okay. But I'm going to tell you what, if a woman just sitting there in 2 minutes can bend them, then it's a piece of junk. Those threads shouldn't have bent like that. And so I couldn't get the actual beginning part that would allow me to hook my water hose to the system to run it through the emitters. I couldn't even get that to work. It broke. And I'm sitting there, this was months ago when I was first starting my gardens. This was back in March, beginning of March. And I'm sitting there that day about to cry. I finally just rigged up using old parts and some of the new parts. I rigged up my upper garden. I never got anything for my lower garden. I never did one row of drip tape on my lower garden. I really just wanted to really get it on my tomatoes for sure. Cowpeas don't really need it. But I was really wanting it on my tomatoes and my corn. I wasn't going to run it on every row everywhere. Well, it was done. I mean, it was garbage. I've got a roll of floppy, wet noodle drip tape if anyone wants to buy it off of me. It's in my garage. And so that started off my season, putting me in a little bit of a bind with watering. What keeps coming up, though, is everything is junk. Everything is junk. I do know there's probably garden supply places I could call right now and order a fantastic sprinkler from. Fantastic. But I didn't know that months ago when I was getting going with my garden. So I just ran to my Ace Hardware store and I bought a sprinkler, which turned out to be a Gilmore brand, which was junk. I would have to go over there with a big long stick and hit it to get it. It would just stop. It would just stop. It would sprinkle for a while and it would get tired. It would just stop. And these were brand new, so I don't think they were all clogged up or anything. They were brand new. Okay, so after going over there and doing that for weeks, hitting it with a stick, I went back to the Ace Hardware and I said, just give me any other one. And I love my little Ace Hardware, so I'm not really criticizing them. This is just what they were carrying. So I said, give me another sprinkler, please, but I don't want the Gilmore. So I bought the Ace Hardware sprinkler. I don't know if it lasted a week. It just did the same thing. It wanted to stop, or what it really did was just never start. It never pressured up. And when your hose is stretched out straight and you've got your water faucet on full blast, and if you take the sprinkler off, the water is shooting across your yard because it's full blast, but it's not doing anything because your sprinkler doesn't want to work. So I have sat here and watched my gardens just get worse and worse. And you might think, well, go get something different. Well, I did. I went and bought 2 of the metal sprinklers that are like spikes you put in the ground, kind of like they use at golf courses. And they sit there and go, you know, they do that. I've got 2 of them laying in Richard's garden over there in the dirt because they don't work. I figured out how to adjust them. I figured all that out, and that was fine. And I adjusted them, and I was using them, and they worked like one weekend. I figured out exact angles and exact way to do it to where I only had to, for that big old garden over there that's about 40 or 50 feet by 100 feet, I only had to move it twice, and I had the whole garden watered. It watered my corn and everything, and then it didn't. And then it would, and it would stay in one spot for 30 minutes. It wouldn't come back. So the pressure was there. It was, you know, spitting out water, but it wouldn't come back. So I would go over there, you know, jiggle it, do whatever I had to do. Sometimes it would come back, and then it would stay there. It would stay there. And so it was junk. They were junk. So, and I can't run both at one time, I found out, because they won't pressure up high enough to run both at one time. So I could only run one at a time. But that was okay, as long as I could move it, you know, and get the whole garden done. And then I'd bring it over here and try to do these gardens. But they both petered out on me. So I threw them in the same graveyard that I threw the 2 tall tripod sprinklers that I had, that I started this year with, from last year, that I hated last year, but I, you know, kept them a little bit this year and tried, and they did the same thing. The legs broke off of them. You're supposed to be able to kind of put them in the ground to anchor them. They have little spikes on each tripod tip, and you kind of shove them into the ground. Well, I have hard clay soil. They broke. You know, they broke right off. And without being anchored in the ground, they don't stay stable, and they want to rock over and everything. And so, and when one, it's like breaking one heel on a pair of high heels. You don't walk good when you have one high foot and one low foot. So the sprinkler would want to shoot straight up in the air and all, you know, it was just terrible. So today, I'll walk over here and show you. I've got $150 million invested in sprinklers and drip tape. I'm exaggerating. I can't say the word of what I am, but I ain't happy. I'm just not happy. And it's today, yesterday was 100 degrees. Today's 95. Woo, you know, big deal. It's 95 degrees. Heat index of 45 million, and I'm literally crunching as I walk through my garden. So today I'll show you what I ended up having to spend $25.99 on today. And y'all out there might look at it and go, oh my God, she bought one of those, you know, because you might have tried it and it might be terrible. But it's all I could get. I looked at all their plastic sprinklers. I went to a different hardware store today in a nearby town. They had 5 or 6 plastic sprinklers. I'm thinking I could break this standing in this aisle. I could just break it standing here. I didn't even want to buy them. And I finally looked down and saw they had one made out of metal. And I thought, I'm getting it. But it didn't tell me how many feet it covered. It was the only sprinkler they had that did not tell me how many feet it covered. Well, turns out it doesn't cover much. But it is working right now. And it is heavy enough that it's stable on my ground. And I hate to say it, but the best thing it has going for it is water's actually coming out of it. I can't say that about my other sprinklers, but this one actually has water coming out of it. It's got 9 different settings. Right now I have it just on the one that kind of sprays it everywhere, but I'll show you what it is. It's just a metal sprinkler made by that Landscape company. That's the brand name, Landscape. And I'll be honest with you, I bought some of their nozzles for hoses before, and they broke and never worked good. So I was very leery to even buy this today. But I bought it because I'm desperate. I'm sitting here watching everything die. I'm watching it die. If money was no object, I would go back to that hardware store and get 2 or 3 more of these and just, well, I can't. My water pressure they won't pressure up if I do that. I forgot about that. Well, I can't. So this little guy here is either going to save my garden or it's not. I have wasted half a day running some other errands, but also, you know, going to get this and then coming back home and running the hose out here. I'm trying to save my Black Diamond watermelons. I don't think they're doing great. Some of my melons, instead of being round, they're kind of getting like a little oblong shape to the end to them. They're supposed to be more like a bowling ball. Some of them are a little bit more pear-shaped. Not all of them. Some of them are round, but some of them are a little bit more pear-shaped. And I just feel like that's from lack of water. Probably because I hadn't got any water. Forgive me, I'm sweating bullets. But I mentioned in my video the other day when I said I was pooped and overwhelmed, I mentioned that when it rains, it's 100 degrees and then it rains and then it gets right back to 100 degrees. Well, I didn't go into a lot of detail because I was just upset that day and kind of tired. But we haven't had any rain. We've only had, it rained on Friday, June 3rd for about an hour, and it was a good little steady rain. It wasn't a storm, it was a good little steady rain for about an hour. And then it didn't rain again until Friday, June 10th. I had my grandkids that night. It started lightning and thundering all over the place and almost missed us, but we caught the tail end of it, and it drizzle rained for, I don't know, it made a drizzle rain for an hour. But I was out here right after that looking at things, and my ground was not muddy. I mean, I was proud of the rain we got, but my ground wasn't muddy. So my plants, because of all these issues I've had with these sprinklers where I can't rely on them and I can't, you know, I would come out here every 20 minutes and move them before, but they weren't working. And then I went through, you know, the 4 days of having family here and getting my house ready for family and having them here and everything. And then I'm trying to get back on it now. And the second one I bought wasn't working. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm about ready for a good cry. I'm about ready for a good cry. Sometimes you just need to cry. I want so badly. I don't want to lose them because I'm not crying, it's sweat. I don't want to lose them because of silly water issues of mine. Now, it hasn't rained, but I could be watering the heck out of all this stuff and nothing works. And I just went out and spent money after money after money. I bought the tripod sprinklers in Franklinton, junk. I bought the 2 steel ones that you put in the ground from Ace Hardware, junk. I bought the 2 different sprinklers from Ace Hardware, junk. So, oh, well, that doesn't even count the system from Johnny's, junk. Now, I've got this little UFO looking metal one. And everything I've got, especially with these melons, is hinging on that little disc watering my plants. I stood out there this morning and went to Richard's garden and hand watered my other watermelons. I stood in the heat. It was already hot. I was out there at 8 o'clock. It was hot. And I stood out there and went along that about 70 or 75 foot part where I have watermelons, and I just hand watered them. And I hope it helped a little. I hadn't been out there this evening. But I'm gonna just keep moving this little thing. I'm gonna give everything a little dose. And I may even just have to start coming out here after dark and just keep moving the hose and keep watering even into the night. I know you hear all this stuff about don't get any water on your plants at night, and you know, they need time to dry off. I understand that, but I think I'm gonna lose everything if I don't just keep putting some water to their roots. And I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I'm hot, I'm tired, and I'm standing in a crunchy, dying garden on my birthday. This is what I've been occupied with today. And my husband, bless his heart, he's got, you know, the global aphasia. It's an effect from his stroke. I'm so sorry. And I'm sure my shirt is getting just covered with mascara. But my husband has got the global aphasia that is in effect from his stroke. And when we went riding a while ago to the post office and everything, and to go up in the country to get this sprinkler, he said, what's wrong? You look 150 years old. Now, he said that plain as day. There's some things he can't say plain as day. But he told me it's plain as day. He said, you look 152 years old. And I was like, well, thank you. I had just got ready and just straightened my hair and just got out of the tub. I was like, wow. You know, if I look that bad right after getting ready, I'm in trouble. And he didn't mean that. He can't say what's on his mind. What he was trying to say was, you look worried. What's the matter? But that's what came out. So I said, whew. I said, well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that, you know. And he said, no, I don't mean nothing by it. I just mean you look 152 years old. And I know what he meant. I know what he was trying to say. You look worried is what he was trying to say. And I am worried because I just didn't want to lose, especially all these melons. The cowpeas, they would have been great to sell. I have some in there, you know, but a ton of them would have been great to sell. I would have loved to have told people, I just have bags and bags of cowpeas. Come get some purple hull peas, you know. But I'll just have a few. And then I still have plenty of cowpeas that I've canned the last few years for our family. So I'll be okay with that. The tomatoes, they had run their course already before this heat got here, except the cherry tomatoes, they're still everywhere. I'm gonna go over the varieties of cherry tomatoes that I grew. I'll go over them with you again at some point because every one of them was a hit. Every one of them grew like crazy and just produced so many cherry tomatoes. So if by telling you again which varieties they are, if that'll help anybody, I'll be glad to do that. So let me go move these hoses. I appreciate doing these videos sometimes because it allows me to think out loud, which helps me sometimes. I don't really have anyone to bump ideas off of with all this. Communication wise, you know, it helps me to bump some ideas off of people. So if you've got a sprinkler that you would recommend, you know, what the heck, I'll go spend more money on more watering systems. But it helps just to be able to talk about it. It'll get okay, and I'll figure it all out. But it just helps to kind of bump ideas off of people and just get my feelings out and my frustration. And maybe, just maybe, by doing this, it'll save me from having a big crying fit. Maybe it'll save me from just falling apart at the seams. And because that's what I feel like doing right now. It's because of the heat. It's because I'm tired. And it just is what it is. I'm not the only one that's hot. I'm not the only one that's tired. And I'm probably, because I'm sure most places sell this same brand name stuff, I'm probably not the only one with sprinklers that don't work. So if that's your problem and if you figured it out, please tell me what to do. I would appreciate it. This is Lainey with Camp Joy Farms. Thanks for letting me talk to you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.